What is up, everyone? Welcome to Wednesday at noon. It is the Heart Life, and I am so excited. I'm always so excited to be with you guys every week. I have my parents joining me today, not on camera. They're hiding, but they are actually here this week. It's not even the weekend. I just said it's Wednesday. We had School of Ministry last night, and we had our second class of graduates. I just want to give props to TWC and the School of Ministry of everything that you guys are doing. And I'm so honored that I get to be a part of that. So we had our second class of graduates last night. Whoop, whoop. Hi, Jen. Jen is always like the first one on here. So she makes my heart smile. In saying that, of having graduation last night and ordination, I was honored and privileged to be able to be ordained last night. But I just want to give props and shout outs to Jen about what a great friend that she is. She took my graduation gown to the dry cleaners to have it pressed and whatever they do at the dry cleaners. I was in a moment where I was like, I don't know that I've ever in my life taken anything to the dry cleaners. And she just grabbed it out of my hand and said that she would do it for me. So love you, Jen, and appreciate your friendship. I had a lot of things going on yesterday that I was trying to get organized, and it was just so nice to not have to worry about that. So thank you for being awesome. I love you. And if you guys, I think I've mentioned that before, if you don't know who Jen is, you need to find her if you go to the worship center or just show up at TWC on a Sunday in Brownfield because you want to meet Jen because she's amazing. So I am so glad. We are in episode 11. Can you guys believe it? If you've been with me from the very beginning, thank you. If this is your first time jumping in, I always give the disclaimer that we've been building something here. So I highly recommend that you go back and start with episode 1 so that you're not confused if this is the first time you are coming across this information, because I don't want anyone to feel lost or confused or overwhelmed or to think these guys are crazy. I don't know what they're talking about. We want you to start at the beginning so that you know what we're talking about. Today, we are going to be talking about beyond the core. So last week, we talked about the emotional control center. I hope no one was overwhelmed with the brain science. Again, I am not a scientist by any means, far, far from that. But it's just very fascinating to see how everything is connected. And of course, as we've said, of course, Jesus is a genius and he connected everything. Of course he did, right? So today we are talking about beyond the core, and I don't want anyone feeling overwhelmed today. So everyone just take a deep breath. Jen, encourage everyone to take a deep breath because I know this isn't the first time that you are hearing this information. Let me get my little buttons going here. As always, if you guys have any questions, I always encourage you to email me. I want to just give you permission that there is no dumb question. I don't want anyone going through this and feeling alone. I know that sometimes it can stir up some stuff on the inside of you, maybe that you thought you've already dealt with, or things that you've been avoiding your whole life for a good reason, and going through these videos may have stirred up some stuff. And I don't want you to push that stuff back down. I don't want you to suppress this one moment longer. I want you to reach out, and we want to walk alongside you and show you, even like sharing our own stories with you, sharing our own testimonies of what this has looked like for us. There's nothing weird. I can't count how many times I've been in a session with somebody and I'm leading them through, and we're asking Jesus questions to show them something, and then their comment be, "You're going to think this is weird." And I'm like, try me. I guarantee you I have my own stories, and I'm going to share a few of them today that you may think are weird. So you're in good company. We're all in this together. So let's get started here. So, did everyone take a deep breath? Ask my dad. Dad, did you take a deep breath? He's over there playing his game, I think. They didn't want to be on here, and so I won't make them today. We'll look at doing that in a different episode. But okay, so beyond the core is all about, up until this point, we've been talking about the parts of our heart, learning that we have parts of our heart, learning that this is universal, which means that Jesus created every person on the planet with parts of their heart. And we didn't know that this happened. We didn't know that this was literally a part of us, of how Jesus made us, right? We've said it several times. This isn't a technique that we've attached Jesus to and then called it some kind of freedom ministries or healing, inner healing modalities, right? This is literally the way Jesus created our heart to operate. So in that, we want to learn for ourselves, what does this look like for the inside of me, right? We all have stories, we all have struggles, we all have things that we've been through, and highs and lows and goods and bads. But learning that our heart a lot of times has been conditioned to suppress the bad so that our heart can continue to function. And the Lord has shown us, and we've given names to those parts of the heart: function, guardian, emotion, and our original self, just to give us an idea of what's going on the inside of us when maybe we're struggling with something. Every day we can deal with things, right? If you live in Lubbock, Texas, and you get on the loop, you're going to struggle. I remember when Kevin and I first moved here, I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't know that you had to qualify for NASCAR to drive on the loop in Lubbock, Texas. It was just crazy. And when we first got here, I was like, they don't have yield signs when you're exiting off of the loop like we do in Amarillo. So yeah, crazy stuff. So you're gonna probably, and I know PT talks a lot about this when he gets on the loop of, we don't want to lose our Jesus, right, when we're driving in Lubbock. So learning that we have these core parts of the heart, that we can be triggered every day, if you will. It's just life. But sometimes those things are connected to something deeper that's going on the inside of us. So we've been talking about the core parts of our heart, the ones that I just mentioned. But to learn that we can experience some things in life that are so difficult that it can cause our heart to fracture, if you will, or to break beyond just those core parts of the heart. And I have some pictures for you guys today. I hope this helps you. I've said it many times. If you are on here live, thank you for being with me. It always helps me feel like I'm not talking to myself. But that you can go back and watch these videos. We have a YouTube channel as well. If you want to share that, I highly recommend. We want to help as many people as possible. But you can go back and watch these videos, and I hope that these slides help you if you need to pause in the moment to be able to process and take notes, or to take more in of what the Lord wants to show you about this. But our hearts can fracture into other smaller parts of the core. So there's the 4 parts of the heart that I mentioned. Do you like my little crown? Isn't she cute? To remind us that we belong to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and that means you are royalty. So if you're sitting next to someone, you can turn to them and say, you are royalty. My dad is royalty. But we can experience some things with these core parts of our heart, again, that can be so difficult that our heart is overwhelmed in that moment. Those parts are overwhelmed in that moment, and it's like they're overloaded and can't carry one more thing, and they need help to be able to carry that. And so it's in that moment that another part emerges out of your core part of your heart to help carry that. And I have some pictures and some more slides. I don't want anyone to be confused. Again, I need all of you left brain, logical, linear thinkers, function, that likes to be in control and explain everything. Again, I need that part of your heart to consider, to take a deep breath and understand that there may just be some things that we are experiencing or have experienced that there is no explanation for, and we need the Holy Spirit and the help of Jesus to explain some of these things. Can we all agree that there are just some things in life that we're never going to have the answer for, but to know and the hope that comes from knowing that Jesus has the answer, right? I remember the day that the Lord, it's so funny how he treats my heart, but he's just like, you realize that there's nothing that I don't know, right? Like there's no question marks for him. And so the things that cause our heart to feel anxious or nervous about or even fearful, um, we're trying to learn to live differently, right? So, what it looks like to lean into Jesus, the one that holds all of the answers, to know that we don't have to freak out. So, functions, there are some things, maybe a lot of things on the inside of us that we may never have an explanation for. And it's why we need help of allowing Jesus to come into those places so that he can explain what he wants us to know about that. Can we all agree on that? Okay. So, emotion parts. So, again, your core emotion in the moment that something else painful happens, right? It's like life is walking up to this part of your heart, if you will. No one asked emotion if she felt like carrying something else, right? Sometimes we just experience things that happen out of the blue, and now our heart feels so overwhelmed, we don't have any more room. We've talked a lot about capacity, how pain takes up space, and if we are not healing well, it's causing these like storage facilities, if you will, to pop up on the inside of us that's just storing pain. So we don't have a whole lot of capacity. So if we're thinking about the core part of our emotion, in those moments, she is already carrying so much that she cannot carry one more thing. And she is so overwhelmed. And I have this cute little picture. I'm just very visual, you guys. And so I hope that these pictures help you. Um, so if we say that this little girl is our emotion, and she's carrying all of these books, and each of these books represents something painful that you've experienced in your life. Now, if these words don't connect with you, fill in your own words of what that pain looks like for you. And again, why it's so important for us to individualize this and personalize it for ourselves, because all of us may have different things that we would say we would put on these books. But your emotion is so overwhelmed in that moment that something else painful happens in life. She can't carry one more thing, right? It's like if she carried one more book, it would cover her eyes. She wouldn't even be able to see. So in that moment, we have another emotion part, a friend, if you will, that shows up on the scene to help her carry that new painful thing that just happened. Are you tracking with me? Does that make a little sense? So these additional emotion parts are what have allowed our heart to survive, and we are able to keep functioning. Now, I want you to remember, I'm trying to keep all my little pictures here. Like the goal of the parts of our heart and the goal of the guardian part of our heart is to help keep the pain away from function so that our heart can continue to function, right? So again, you have this new emotion part that has emerged that is carrying the new painful thing to help us be able to survive. Now, again, most of us have just been surviving most of our life, right? Without realizing that we got into that habit. It just became normal. And again, there's no shame, right? We don't want to shame ourselves. We don't want to beat ourselves up. Most of us are really good at that, being really hard on ourselves. But we don't want to shame ourselves because this was happening and we had no idea that this is what was happening, right? So this emotion part is created and it helps us just to survive because we're trying to just keep functioning, to go through the motions, to do the things that we need to do. So, as Jesus rescues and heals these emotion parts, the core emotion part of your heart will be strengthened and it will cause them to grow. So I think that I've mentioned on here before, it's not uncommon for us to, when we first meet, I guess, if we could put it in those terms, because again, if the emotion part of your heart were a person, what would she look like? What would he look like? A lot of times when the Lord shows us that part of us in the beginning of our journey of learning to connect with our heart in this way, it's not uncommon for the emotion part of your heart to be very young. I mean, I think to meet someone that when I take them through a session for the first time, I don't think that I have met. I think the oldest may be 10, 12, like the beginning of teenage years, but it's very, very common for the emotion part of your heart to be very young. Because in that moment when we were, and 5 years old seems to be 5 or 6 years old seems to be the common age when we are first learning this. And I don't know if that's because at that age, it's kind of the beginning part of us having like memories. If we have experienced some painful things, it's kind of the beginning of us remembering that. Um, but it's very common for the emotion part of your heart to be 5 or 6 years old. Um, but the that part of your heart should be as old as you are. But they get stuck because of the trauma, because of the pain, because of the disappointment. Again, thinking of the little girl holding all of the books, like she's drowning, right? She's drowning, and pain is taking up space. And so she hasn't been allowed to live life in the fullness of who Jesus created that part to be because we're so bogged down with all of the pain. Has anyone ever felt like it's hard to even be still sometimes? I think we've mentioned this before too. If you constantly feel like you have to grab your phone, you're constantly watching reels on social media, you're constantly scrolling, watching videos, TikTok, you name it, right? There's so many distractions out there. But what if that is a coping mechanism? What if your heart has a hard time being still and being quiet because here comes all of these thoughts and that pain begins to surface, and so we're trying to suppress that, right? Again, no shame. Please don't beat yourself up if you find yourself in this boat. Maybe you're looking around and you're like, holy crud, I didn't even know I was in this boat, and now this is being exposed to you. Good. Again, we want to heal well, right? I keep saying, like for us as adults, I'm grown now. Dang it. I want to heal well. I don't want to be stuck in these places back in the past, right? That keep leaking through, right? Because one of our favorite things that we say is that pain never goes away. It has to be healed, and unhealed pain leaks. So these emotion parts can be leaking as well, if you will. And we want the Lord to be able to come into those places because He is the only one that can bring the full, complete healing, right? And as He does that, your emotion part of your heart will grow, the core part of you. So my emotion part was 5 when I first was introduced to her, and she is around the, early 30s now, 33. And you may be wondering, "How in the world, Nicole, do you know that?" Um, I have just learned to be very intentional of allowing the Lord to show me what this looks like for me. And when you invite Him in and you give Him permission, Lord, what does this look like? He will show you. And I feel like I've gone through, my emotion has gone through different stages, if you will, that as the Lord has taken me to some places and there were emotion parts that were there, and He brought them in to the whole of the home of my heart and began to like I've told this story. I don't know if I've told it on here, but I know that I've told this a lot to some of you. Um, that in the very beginning of my journey, and the reason that I haven't shared a whole lot of my stories up until this point was because a lot of my journey started out with a lot of emotion parts, and I couldn't mention it yet because we hadn't got there yet in the teaching. And so, one of the places that the Lord took me, I had a lot of little kids, girls and boys. Uh, and if Side note, if you are female, you can have female and male parts of your heart, and it doesn't mean anything one way or the other. In males, same thing. You can have different female or male emotion parts or other parts of you. And I think I've mentioned this before too, but men, it's very common for your emotion to be female. And there's nothing that it means by that. It's very normal. So, in the beginning of my journey, the Lord had taken me to this place, and I had a lot of little ones. And so, as the Lord brought them into the home of my heart, and they were interacting with the core parts of my heart, I just got this urge in this season to watch cartoons. Um, you like to watch cartoons too. Um, but I remember Kevin, I think he was probably in the living room watching football or something, and I was in the bedroom, and we have a TV in our bedroom, um, and he walked in, and I was watching, How to Train Your Dragon, I think. I think I have told this story before, but it's a good reminder because it makes me laugh. He walked in, and he was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, and I think I was coloring or I was drawing and coloring, and he's just looking at me like I've lost my mind, like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm watching cartoons, Kevin, leave me alone." Um, but when I say that this is not just a technique, this is real, you guys. This is real on the inside of you that's happening. And you will begin to feel the difference as the Lord goes to these places and He's bringing healing to these parts of you that you didn't even know existed. But again, the age of the emotion part tends to correlate with something painful that happened in your life. And so you can just ask Jesus, right? This is our motto around here. And if you haven't heard that before, you might not have been listening or you checked out for a moment, because you will hear us say this a million times over a million times. Just ask Jesus. Again, if you tend to be more left brain, we're inviting you to come into the balance of the center with Jesus to allow Him to show you what this looks like for you. If you try to diagnose yourself, you are going to drive yourself crazy. This whole thing that we're doing is meant to enlighten and awaken your heart to something new in Jesus to allow Him to show you what this looks like for you. And then you don't have to run off and try to go fix yourself. Good luck with that, right? How many of us have already been trying that for decades? And please tell me if that has worked for you. And if it did, please tell me what your secret was. Um, because I guarantee you 100% that it did not work for you. We want to invite Jesus into these places so that He can bring the fullness of the healing that needs to happen. Now, very important, and on this slide, I want to mention not everything painful in your life is going to cause a new emotion part to emerge, which is why it is so important to just ask Jesus because He's going to show you. Again, you don't want to drive yourself crazy, running yourself into the ground to try to understand or figure all of this stuff out. Step by step, He will lead you. I have a client right now that reached out to me last week, and she was asking a question that she had come, and I don't know all of the details, and even if I did, it's none of your business. Um, uh, Honored that she has invited me into that place in her life to be able to help her. But she'd asked me the question of, is it possible to come up against a place and to ask Jesus and for Jesus' response to be, you're not ready for that yet? I don't remember her exact wording, but something like that, like, we're not there yet. Like, I'll show you in time, but right now is not the time for that. You want to follow Jesus's instructions because if you continue to go down a road that He is telling you you're not ready for yet, it's not because He's trying to be ugly or mean. He's trying to protect you, and you may not have the capacity yet to handle whatever that is that is down that road, right? That we can trust Jesus, that he knows what he's doing step by step. We want to take him by the hand and let him lead us in the way that he knows that we need to go, right? I think I've shared before how sometimes I've had clients come in for a session and they had in their mind that they wanted to talk about something over here. And as we got into it, Jesus went over here, and they're like, but Jesus, I wanted to know about this. And he's like, we're going to talk about this. And so our heart learns to lean into that peace that surpasses all understanding and allow him to lead us because he knows what he's doing, right? You guys know that by now. Jesus is real smart, y'all. And I promise you that if you trust him, he will not steer you wrong. He wants to show you step by step what needs to happen. And it may be growing capacity. I've had people that have checked in with their heart. They have gone to their Emmanuel moment. Maybe they're on the beach. The parts of their heart are building a sandcastle with Jesus. That's real fun. And there's not really anything that's being said. They're not talking about anything painful. They're not going down any pathway or any memory of dealing with any kind of traumatic thing that has happened or disappointment. They're just enjoying each other's company. And I'm telling you guys, that is just as vital as when he takes you to somewhere that is dealing with something painful. Because what we don't realize is happening in that moment is there's trust that's being built in that moment, to know that you can be in his presence and he's kind and he's gentle and there's nothing scary that's going to happen, that he's not pressuring you. He's not pushing you towards something. He's not expecting you to perform or to do anything, right? You're just having fun with him and building a sandcastle. And I've had people that have struggled with that, not understanding that in that moment there is something supernatural that is happening on the inside of you, and it matters. It all matters. Okay, does this make sense? Now, the reason that this is important and why I thought that it was so vital for me to include this when I wrote my book is because you can have the core parts of your heart connected to each other and connected to Jesus and still feel stuck and still feel like there's something missing and feel frustrated that you don't know what it is. And this might be what is happening. Because if you have multiple emotion parts, they are carrying pain, right? That was the whole point of why they were created, if you will, in the first place, was they are carrying something painful, and pain never goes away. It has to be healed, and unhealed pain leaks. So that pain is still leaking into your current day. Does this make sense? Okay, let's see. Now, I've had parts of my heart, little ones that were like locked behind bars, like they were in jail. I've also had emotion parts that were just in the bushes. I have this whole scene, you guys. I might show you one day. I created a little map through Illustrator because I was just curious. Because I'm so visual, I wanted to put it down on paper where I could see it. But I have like the home of your heart. What does a home look like? It has rooms. It has a kitchen. My house happened to have a basement. I have a backyard, and the Lord had just rescued a little emotion part, and they were in the backyard. And I just saw the bushes begin to move, and I was like, okay, so we do the pushback prayers, right? The enemy is not welcome here. So it's like, what is this? And so I've learned if I ever sense something like that or see something like that, that I just want to invite any other emotion part that is out there, if you will, at the sound of my voice that can hear me. I invite you to come in and join us with Jesus. With what we are doing. And I had this little girl pop out of the bushes, and she was carrying this little teddy bear. And he was real dirty, you guys. He was missing an ear, missing an eye. Like you could tell he was very worn and torn. But she was not locked behind bars. She was just free. She was just hiding because she was afraid, and she didn't know. She didn't really know who Jesus was. She had heard about him, but she'd never met him. And so there was this beautiful little meet up of where he got down on his knee to embrace her. And he wanted her to hand him her teddy bear. And of course, she struggled with that because she's had that for a long time. It had been a comfort for her. But the Lord began to share with her that that little bear came from the enemy, and the enemy gave her that, and it was a false comfort. It was counterfeit, and he wanted to give her something better. And I don't know if you've ever, and this just came to me, I wasn't planning on even sharing this story, or I would have found the little graphic that I know is out there that has Jesus down on one knee, and he's got the big teddy bear behind his back. He wants to give her something better, right? And when you walk this walk with Jesus and you're building this history with him, you realize that what he has in store for you is always better than what you're hanging on to begin with, right? So she went through this little process of kind of wrestling with that. And then she finally decided to hand her bear. And he brought out this big teddy bear that was as big as she is. And she was so excited. And you guys, again, I'm telling you, I don't want this to be, or these to be weird stories, because like I always say, I'm not talking about that we have little people running around on the inside of us. It's literally a way that the Lord is giving us to have some kind of understanding of what is happening on the inside of us. And I could feel it on the inside of me, of the joy that this part of me was encountering with Jesus, with this new little bear. So it matters so much to be able to understand how the Lord created us so that we know how to navigate with him. And if he shows you something, for you to have the tools to understand, oh, that might be an emotion part. And then you can just begin to conversate with the Lord about that, of what he wants you to know about it, right? Again, don't try to diagnose yourself. Just ask Jesus. Okay, so the other thing that we will talk about beyond the core. Now, everyone take a deep breath again. Holy Spirit, come. I don't want anyone freaking out. I had a lady that was in one of our classes, and props to her. I'll honor her and not share her name, but you know who you are if you're watching. She just graduated last night. So proud of her and the growth that I have been a part of watching happen in her life. But when we began to talk about that you can have multiple guardians, she was just like, oh my gosh, like I just learned not that long ago that I even have a guardian and didn't even know that was a thing. And now you're telling me I could have more than one? Like, she just didn't know what to do with that information. So if that feels overwhelming to you, again, take in what you can, hand the rest to Jesus. And when the time is right, he will bring it back to you. Or you will go back and watch these videos again. And each time that you watch them, I promise you, and you can take it to the bank, that you are going to get more and more out of it, because as you begin to learn to live this as a lifestyle, you will have more capacity to take in more, right? Okay, let me find. So hidden guardians, again, everybody breathe. Did anybody pass out? Pick yourself up off the floor and come back. It's going to be okay. So hidden guardians, again, the moment that you have an emotion part that emerges to help the little girl that's carrying all of the books, and she doesn't have room for one more thing, right? So now an emotion part comes to help carry that new pain. In that moment, it is very common for there to be a new guardian that is assigned, if you will, to this new emotion part to help keep her in her place, right? I'm going to switch back over to this slide, because again, now this is the slide that I used when we were talking about the parts of the heart, but it's the same exact principle. Number one, you just put emotion part. Number two, it's a hidden guardian. Guardians' role, apart from Jesus, has always felt like they had to keep emotion and function separated so that we wouldn't be overwhelmed with the pain or the disappointment, or you fill in the blank, so that function could continue to function. That's the role that guardian felt like that's what they were created for. That's what they're supposed to be doing. Now, again, this is apart from Jesus. Jesus never created us to be apart from him, right? So these things tend to even wall off, if you will, from Jesus. And so hidden guardians, similar in how they, I don't want to say function as in like confusing with function, but how they operate the same way they're a guardian. So you can have more than one guardian. Um, and these places on the inside of us can be hidden for a lifetime if we didn't know to ask for them. If we didn't know to ask Jesus, Lord, what does this look like for me? And what do you want me to know about this now? Now, again, just like my client had, you may ask some questions or have an inkling that something is connected to something deeper. But if the Lord tells you you're not ready to go there yet, don't freak out and think, oh my gosh, what is behind that door? Because again, there's nothing bigger than he is, right? So we don't have to be afraid of that. But if he says it's not time yet, then we just trust him and we just sit with him and allow the core parts of us to grow in him before maybe he shows us something more, right? Does this make sense? Hidden guardians are very, very common. So as you go through this journey, if you're like, oh, there's a guardian. Oh, there's another guardian. Oh, there's 5 more guardians. Like, don't freak out and think that there's something wrong with you. Um, I have had a lot of guardians myself, and there's nothing wrong with you. Again, and there's no formula to this. And I know all of the function just said, oh man, because function wants a formula, but there's no formula for this. That these places, these guardians were created to help manage all of the things that our heart is carrying that the Lord never intended for us to carry, right? So it's very, very common to have a lot of hidden guardians. Now, the thing that we want to know about this is we've talked about before, I believe, that the enemy can attach to any part of our heart, if you will. And I'm not talking about like some kind of possession or like controlling you, right? But oppression. He has the ability to influence us, right? Through lies, we come into agreement with things that the Lord never intended for us to agree with, because if it ain't true, guess who it is, right? But we have the ability to come into agreement with things that causes the enemy to have an open door to come in and influence that part of our life. So the enemy can do that with any part of our heart. But he is always, I want you guys to say always, he is always attached to a hidden guardian. Why, you ask? Well, think about how a hidden guardian is created in the first place, right? Your heart is overwhelmed with so much that emotion is already carrying. So there's a new emotion part. A lot of times there's a hidden guardian that is created in that moment too. In that moment that they are created, it's coming from something very painful that just happened in your life. Does that make sense? So we could word it in a way, a very dark time or a very dark thing that just happened. Um, so doesn't it make sense that the enemy would be attached to that? Of course, he's the one that probably set up and created that situation to begin with. So he is always, always attached to a hidden guardian. And another word for that can be a cosmic attachment. Now, I'm not trying to sound like super spiritual here, but it is good for us to understand some terminology that is biblical when you look in the original language. And I think I have mentioned with you guys before, if that interests you at all, and you don't have to like have this yearning to be a Bible scholar, but just to understand more, Bible Hub is free. And it's super helpful when you're looking at how to go deeper with a scripture to understand the original language. There's so much that got left out, not not misinterpreted by any means. I'm not saying that. Your Bible, NIV, whatever, you're looking, English, Spanish, um, hopefully it's a good Bible and you didn't get it off the street by someone. Is that even a thing? I don't know. But you went to Mardell, you got a Bible, you're good. But there's with the Hebrew and the Greek, there's some things that are so floral, if you will, so detailed in the Greek and the Hebrew, that is missed when it gets translated into English. So Bible Hub is a good place to go to learn some deeper meaning. So that cosmic attachment word there comes from Ephesians 6:12, and a lot of you might be familiar with this verse. But it says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in high places." Now, there's 4 categories there, if you will, when it comes to the enemy and how his army, if you will, is aligned. So when we think about the painful things that we've been through, and there's a cosmic attachment, it's referring to this scripture. We're talking about, and I hate giving the enemy credit, but it is a real thing. We're talking about the higher ranks, if you will, in the enemy's camp, which is why it is so important to just ask Jesus and allow him to come in, because this is the most gentle deliverance. If you've ever experienced any kind of deliverance ministry, and it's all necessary and it's all needed, and I've experienced both. But in this way, in journeying, going on this journey through your heart, it allows the Lord to heal some things that caused the enemy or allowed him to be there in the first place, right? Remember, it's an open door that allowed him to come in. And so it's hard to kick him out of that if that door is still open and if that pain is still there. So when he comes in to deal with that and he heals that, now remember, you do not have to feel to heal. And that is great news for all of us, because that has been the very thing that most of us have been afraid of, or the enemy has used against us, right? Where we didn't want to go down that road. We didn't want to open that door. I don't want to remember those things. But when the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords is standing there, all of that stuff all of a sudden seems smaller, right? Compared to him, the great I am. There's nothing bigger than him. So we want to be able to heal well. And when Jesus heals those things, he deals with the enemy too. And I know that there's more than, and I could testify and have so many stories. We would be here all day, of how the Lord has gone to some places. He's brought that part of my heart up and out of a dark place into the home of my heart. And as he has restored them, a lot of times he'll give them a new name. There's times that I will see a word written over like the top of their head. I had a little part of my heart that when I went, the Lord took me to her. She was behind bars. Anxiety was the attachment that was standing at the door that had locked her in there. And she just had the word rejection written on over the top of her head. And this is a really great story. So I'm glad I'm telling this, because it's fun when you watch, or when you get to see Jesus deal with the enemy and how he is, and how they respond to him. It's very entertaining. But anxiety is just standing there, like looking at Jesus, and Jesus just gives him a look and says, "Get her out, like open the door." That thing like hops to it immediately, right? Because they have to do what Jesus says. And Jesus went into this little girl and he picked her up. She had been in there for so long that she didn't even have like the strength to stand. It's almost like she had lost muscle mass in her legs to even be able to hold her up. And I think she was around 3 or 4 years old. And again, the only way that I know that is I ask the Lord, or I allow him to show me Like, who is this little girl? Where did she come from? How old is she? You can ask these questions and the Lord will show you. And he just in touching her, like strengthened her, completely restored her, took her out of that place into the and brought her into the home of my heart. He gave her a pretty new little sparkly dress, and he gave her a new name, and her name is Treasured. There was never a moment that the Lord ever intended for there to be a place on the inside of me that felt rejected. Um, and so he restored that in that moment and he renamed it Treasured. You are a treasure to him. You are not a burden. You are not a bother. You are precious in his sight, right? He calls you by name. And there has never been a moment that he hasn't been there for you. Um, Again, I don't want these to feel like weird stories, like, oh my gosh. For me, this can play out like a movie. If you are not there yet, it is okay. Grace, right? Give yourself grace as you continue. I'm sorry, you guys, my hair is like, it itches when it like gets in my eye and I'm like, oh, tickles. Um, give yourself grace as you're going down this path with the Lord. And he begins to show you some things. Again, you don't have to freak out. You don't have to be afraid of a cosmic attachment. Push back and restrain. That's one of my favorite prayers. I pray often, every day, multiple times a day, that the Lord would push back and restrain every force that is not of him, that he would silence those things. And to those things, I say, the Lord rebuke you. You are pulling down the authority that you have, but it's his name, right? It's not my name. He's not afraid of me. He is, because he knows whose I am, and that I grab a hold of that, and that is my identity as a daughter of the Most High, and that is your identity. And what the enemy has been going after for so long, right, is to taint our identity and to make us feel like we're not worthy. I could never do that. We disqualify ourselves. But the Lord says, you are royal and you belong to me. You have that same authority. So I don't want anyone to be freaking out about a cosmic attachment or the idea of, oh my gosh, these are higher rank, enemies in Satan's camp. We don't have to be afraid of that. You outrank Satan himself. And we're going to talk more about this next week, but I'll just give you a little blooper. About not a blooper. What is it called? I always get on here and I forget words. Like a little snippet of what is to come next week. We're going to talk more about the truth about your enemy. But I'm very passionate about that as far as your authority and who you are in Jesus. So a guardian, your core guardian will split. Now, when I say that word, I don't want anyone to go far, far left field and think, oh my gosh, we're talking about like multiple personality disorder. Maybe. What if mental illness, like this is what is happening on the inside of people, right? And I do not take that lightly at all. I majored in psychology, you guys. I understand the world system and terminology and the way that the Lord created our brains to operate. I don't know all of the like big words terminology, but know enough to know. And if you've ever watched Criminal Minds, and don't you dare judge me, the Lord speaks to me through shows. And if you can't watch that show, that's okay. I don't feel any kind of like shame or guilt for watching it. He speaks to me through these shows, and how, like, to be able to see the side of it, of what has happened to people on the inside that would cause them to act the way that they do, right? And now I have this understanding of the heart language to understand it in an even deeper way of what is happening on the inside of people. So I am not downplaying at all any kind of mental illness, or anyone that has experienced that, or you have a loved one or a friend that has experienced that. Medication that is necessary to help balance some things that are going on in the brain, because again, if they're all connected, right? But we know based on the word, and it's the scripture we stand on. Oops, I clicked it too fast. Proverbs 4:23, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Your heart is core, guys, and everything that happens in life, it it flows out of that place that is your heart. And now we have this way of dissecting, if you will, even further and deeper and more intimate into what does this look like on the inside of me, because we want to heal well. So guardian will split as many times as necessary in order to get the job done. Again, their core motivation apart from Jesus, because they've been doing what they know works for most of our life to get the job done, is to make sure that emotion and function are separated, so that emotion doesn't go crazy with all of the things that she's carrying and function gets overwhelmed and like shuts down, right? Which could look like it's hard to get out of bed in the morning and we're dealing with some kind of severe depression. That could be a guardian that has been overwhelmed, that potentially just sat down and was like, I'm done, I can't do it anymore. And I don't want anyone to be afraid of that. Again, we want to invite Jesus in. We want guardians to get to know Jesus. Now, a big thing to understand about guardians is that most of them don't know who Jesus is, or they don't like him at all. They blame him for the things that we've experienced. And where were you when this was happening? And why didn't you do anything about it? You're all knowing and all powerful. So why didn't you step in to keep this from happening? Free will, we've talked about that, right? The Lord has given us free will. And if he won't control you, he's not going to control anyone else. And sometimes we get hurt by that and it stinks. And he hates it and he's angry about it and he's hurt by it as well. It was never his intention for you to experience some of the things that you've experienced. But we want these conversations to begin happening with our guardians, with Jesus, so that Jesus can show them where he was in those moments. He can bring truth. It allows our heart to come out of agreement with the lies, right? And it realigns us back into that place where the Lord intended for us to be all along. Now, I don't want anyone to be frustrated about hidden guardians or guardians. Again, they are not evil. They are not bad. It literally is a part of you, and we never want to shame a part of us. You would never want to shame a kid for wetting the bed. They can't control it, right? It's not like, oh, I'm just being lazy and I don't feel like getting out of bed, so I'm just going to go here. Now, could that happen? Maybe. But 99.9% of the time, something else is happening on the inside of them, right? That they can't control. You would never want to shame a child for wetting the bed. You never want to shame a part of your heart, because they are doing the best that they know how and what they feel they have learned that has worked for them, right? So these guardians, again, is where our coping techniques come from. If it's how you've learned to survive, that when that painful memory begins to surface, or because pain leaks, right? Those things are affecting us. And if we don't understand how to navigate that with the Lord, and that we don't have to be afraid of those things, our heart begins to look for things that we can do to help in those moments. And this is where our coping techniques come from. This is where addictions are birthed out of, and no shame, right? Because our guardians in those moments were looking for something to numb the pain, and they found something that worked. Now, once they have found something that worked, it can be difficult to get them to give that up, which is why it's so important that those parts of our heart are spending time with Jesus, even if they're on the beach building a sandcastle with him, because they are learning his personality, they are learning his character, that he's kind, that he's gentle, and to be able to learn that Jesus really is who he says he is, and he is quite capable of handling the pain that you are carrying, and that he wants to do something about it. Because we want these guardians to learn that there is a different option for them. They didn't know that there were options. They didn't know that there was something else that they could consider. And we want them to know that Jesus is here to help. He's not here to take away their job, if you will. He's here to redefine it in him, in the way that he created it to be all along. They were never meant to be separated from him. He wants to help, and we want them to learn what it looks like to trust him, that he really is who he says he is. Is this making sense? So I know that I've said it many times to talk to yourself. I've encouraged you to talk to yourself. If you're walking around your house, wives, and you're talking to yourself and your husband's looking at you like you lost your mind, like, who are you talking to? Mind your business. Talking to Jesus, and I'm talking to my guardian. It is so helpful, you guys, when you when these parts emerge, if you will. And when I say emerge, it's like this image pops into your head of a young lady, or like she's all armored up, and you're like, and maybe you don't even know it's a she because you can't even see their face, and you're like, who is that? Again, I want to give you guys tools that as you're going through this journey of your heart, if you have another part of you that comes forward and you're like, who is that? That you know it could potentially be another guardian. And we want to handle them with love and kindness, because we want them to be able to learn who Jesus is, again, because he is the only one that can help us with these things. Is that okay? And it's not just wives or women that are walking around talking to themselves. I know some of you guys talk to yourselves too. Yeah? Dad, do you talk to yourself? Okay. So is this making sense? Again, don't be overwhelmed. Give yourself grace. I want this to be a turn the light on moment on the inside of you, that you're like, holy crap, that is what's been happening on the inside of me and why I have felt stuck. I want you guys to have the tools and the understanding of how our heart operates, so that you can begin to ask Jesus some questions that maybe you didn't know to ask before. And again, there's no formula. This isn't super spiritual. It's just one step at a time. What season are you in right now? What do you feel coming up in your heart? Triggers are a great way to allow the Lord to lead you, because he will bring the right person in the grocery store at the right time. And you're going to be like, oh, what is that? Like, I thought I already dealt with that. That you guys have the tools to understand, maybe that's something that hasn't healed well. And again, we don't have to suppress it anymore. We want to be able to bring those things to Jesus and be like, Lord, what is this? This is yucky. It stinks. I don't want to carry this anymore. And he's like, great. I never created you to carry that. I want to take that. And we want our heart to trust him, to be able to hand that to him. And then for that exchange to happen, right? We always want to ask for what he would rather us have. So there is an exchange. If we give something, we want to get something. We want to fill that place that is now empty with the goodness of the truth of who he is and what he wants us to have, not the lies, not the gunk that gets built up, right? We want the good stuff that he has for us. Are y'all good? Everybody breathe. Nobody pass out. Again, take in what you can. And if you need to set this episode to the side for a moment because you're just getting started on your journey, that is fine. But I know that some people that are watching are going to be in all different places in their journey. And so we're all in this together. Again, please reach out. Ask questions. We don't want anyone getting stuck or feeling like, oh, I tried to be visual and I can't see anything, so screw this. There's nothing wrong with you. And I've given some pointers in some other videos that if you're not seeing something, it might be a guardian that has their eyes closed or that is keeping that shut down. Now, real quick, before we jump off of here, I want to announce that we tried this a few years ago, and we're going to bring it back. The Heart of the Matter life, living in freedom every day, right? Because the point of why we're learning, or why I want it to be, of why we're learning about our heart, is so that you can learn to live in freedom every day. Freedom is a lifestyle. What does it look like to cultivate a lifestyle that allows you to remain free? Again, the enemy is going to knock on your door every day and try to hand you something that that is good for his own agenda in your life, and I don't want that, right? But sometimes we take the bait, and this gives us a way to be able to recognize that quickly so that we can come out of agreement with those things and allow us to be healing well every single day. This is what living in freedom every day looks like. So we are going to have a community group slash we call it an omega group because omega 3s are good for your heart, people, where we're going to meet once or twice a month for those that are enjoying learning about your heart. We want to provide a space for you where we all come together. We'll probably share a meal. And then just to be able to talk about some of these things, talk out some things you're experiencing, maybe do some Emmanuel moments together. But we want to continue to go through this journey together. And if that interests anyone, I want you to email me, or I had told you guys, you are welcome to text this feed. Now, don't call it, and I forgot to try that. It is just a texting platform. So if you try to call it, I honestly don't know what happens. But if you're interested in the Heart Life group, that you would text us, and so that we can get you plugged in. Again, you guys, thank you so, so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out. We want to do this with you. So, Lord, I thank you for everyone that was watching today. I thank you for the journey that you have them on. I pray that you give them the courage to reach out if there's something that's keeping them from feeling like they can. Lord, I thank you that we are in this together, and we're just so thankful that you're teaching us what this looks like for us so that we don't have to live in that place of being stuck anymore. Lord, we love you. I pray blessings over the rest of our week, and we just praise you for who you are. In Jesus'